But I think having rituals in your life is important because, as we've touched on, it is about bringing your presence to center. So being present in your own life and taking charge of your own life and living in it, something that we don't realize is that we often think novelty makes things go faster. So we think like, oh, I'm having fun and I'm doing this new thing, so it's going faster. But actually, novelty slows down your life and it makes your life go slower. It makes you live in the present.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, Jaye Beringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm Jaye, and we've got Julie Dean Richards here together.
Hi, everyone.
So today we're talking about a really important, well-loved topic, ritual. We are working on just unpacking what people have trouble with and why they don't like it and what their concerns are with the word ritual and why it's so important. It's actually so important to our lives. So let's get started. We don't have a get to know you question, do we?
I don't think so, but we could ask, like, what's one ritual that is helpful in your life that you love?
One ritual that's helpful in your life that you love, Julie.
You were supposed to answer first. Let's see. Something for me that I love doing is I love having just time to myself. Like, this is how simple a ritual can be, but I love just lighting a candle, taking deep breaths, and being able to have a release. And I don't get to it every day, but that is something that I do. And often I will do it in conjunction with a card pull. That's something that I do. If I want to be fancy, then I will add some incense there to make it special. But yeah, I'll take that time to meditate, to think, to pray, and I light the candle just to make it something special, you know? And it's simple to me, but it really is crazy how much it can reset. How about you, Jaye?
Yeah, I will. If I'm blending a tea, I just become very present and I'm bringing in energies that are, beyond, right? So blending a tea, I think, is probably the most ritualistic thing. Like if I'm not feeling good or if I'm trying to address something like one of my kids, the act of blending the tea is very much a healing practice in itself, in addition to whatever constituents I'm putting in.
I love that. I think that's perfect. And to show, again, how simple it can be, no matter what the ritual is.
Yes. All right. So why do we care? What is the importance of a ritual? Because we could just go on with our lives, do the same thing every day, whatever, and mindlessly keep going. What is the difference between ritual and routine, I guess, is probably the first question.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And people who have listened to us a lot may have heard me say this before, but I think it's important to distinguish, like Jaye said, a habit or a routine is something you do without thinking. And lots of times it's things like brushing your teeth, it's a habit. It's something you do, or the way you drive, right? Setting up your mirror, whatever it is. And a ritual, though, is not something you do without thinking. It's something you do to make you think. That's like how they oppose each other. The routine is, this is just what I do. And the ritual is like, no, now I want to draw attention to something purposefully to make my life have purpose. Do you have any thoughts to add to that, Jaye?
Yeah, I think that was really well said. It's interesting because most people think of ritual as just these things that you do at certain periods of time or certain intervals. And I think that the reason that we do ritual during certain intervals is to regularly bring in that intention, regularly bring in that thought. But from the outside looking in, it can look the same. And so that's the big difference, is from the inside looking out makes the difference, whether it's a ritual or if it's just something you mindlessly do every day. I remember I was talking to Leandra Witchwood months and months ago, and she was saying from the outside looking in, like, I was like, what does witchcraft look like, right? To you. From the outside looking in, she's like, it looks like making a cup of tea. It looks like sitting in a forest. All these things are normal. But from the inside looking out, there's so much more communion. And that, I think, it is that little bit of difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important to point out. And I think that like flows really naturally into part of the reason people get afraid of ritual, or
Yeah.
why do we not like this word? Because it's often associated with things like, well, number one, whenever we think about ritual, for some reason, we think about like people in cloaks or something.
Always.
like people wearing cloaks and being in a circle, doing all these crazy things. For some reason, it's always this negative connotation. That's what's been put in our mind by media and by other people, that ritual has to be scary. And if you're afraid of the word witch or witchcraft, it's even scarier, because that's what you associate it with, is something like that. Like, we're doing this on the blood full moon and we're going to sacrifice an animal. And that's what we're doing. When truly, just like Leandra pointed out, ritual can be anything. Like your and my examples were super small things. I mean, I guess lighting a candle can be fancy, but I don't always have to do that for it to be a ritual. For you, stirring tea, exactly what Leandra said too, making a cup or doing something with mindfulness. And I remember when I was first learning about more earth-based practices and thinking about ritual, I read a book by Jenny Blonde, and she calls herself the Comfy Cozy Witch. And in her book, she was just talking about mindfulness. And similar to you, she was talking about how every morning she tries to be mindful and stir intention into her tea before she does these things. She has this routine. And in my mind, this sounds so silly that I didn't realize this before, but in my brain, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it means to be mindful. You think about stuff. Like you actually think about the things you're doing as you're doing them. You put intention into your life and into the different things that you do. Oh my goodness. And it like clicked with me, like all these little things she was doing. They're not huge things. Like one of the things that she talks about doing, which I love, which we have talked about in like our sacred spaces episode, creating sacred spaces. Go back to that one. It was really popular if you want to learn more about this. But she was like, yeah, I'm mindful about the doorway of my home. And like, I have protective things under my doormat because I think about it. Like, I'm thinking about coming in and crossing this threshold. And when I'm cleaning, I'm thinking about the intention I'm putting into my cleaning. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what real mindfulness is. Imagine if I put intention into my life that way. And all of those things, I just wanted to point out, all those little things are rituals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this. Also, I think I heard Paul Chek said this years and years ago. I don't remember when or who he said it to, but basically before you eat, you take the energetic of your stomach acid. And so you just sort of like make a little scoop and put it in your stomach. And so that way your food is energetically pre-digested, right? That's a ritual. Right. Or I'll do that even if I'm making someone's coffee, all these things. So anyways, just little ways to be more mindful. I love this. I think that it's also possible to get overwhelmed by it. And when we start thinking about I have to, and it becomes a sense of urgency and panic and fear if we don't do it a specific way, that's when we're leading into superstition, I think. And it's not about superstitiously doing stuff neurotically. It's about going, what do I want to create? And what are some symbolic things that I'm drawn to represent that thing I'm wanting to create, right? Like the threshold. I want to create a sensation of home and feeling good when I walk into my house. What am I going to do about that? I'm going to, set some intentions in front of my doorway and put some protections or whatever it is I'm doing. That is very different than superstition. If you're full of anxiety about not doing it, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think I'm really glad you pointed that out, because that's the other flip side of ritual is if you are interested in doing it, then lots of times you feel like you have to do it. Like there's a timing thing, right? I have to do it on the new moon or the full moon, or I have to have all these pretty crystals, or I have to have these specific candles and things like that. Those things can be additive. They can be helpful. They can be great for a ritual. You don't have to have anything extra to make the ritual happen, and you don't have to stress yourself out to have something be a ritual to you. For example, reading a book could be a ritual for you. You can make that into a ritual. I know lots of people who read scripture in the morning, and for them, that can be a ritual. Or even taking the breaths that you take, that can be a ritual. Or you can make it more fancy depending on what you want, but it's not about stressing you out. It's about adding to your life, adding intention to your life, not just trying to be superstitious, like Jayan said, but we want it to add to you and help you to think and be intentional.
Absolutely. So what are some reasons that people are afraid of it? Because we talked a little bit about superstition, but there's real reasons that people are like the R word, right? It's this very afraid experience where anything with ritual, like you said, robes and sacrificing and all this crazy stuff. But that's a myth. That's not really what ritual is. So what are some other reasons that people might be afraid of the word ritual that we can sort of unwind that?
Well, a big part of it can be that lots of times ritual is often seen as being in conjunction with some kind of religious entity or religion in general. And lots of times, at least the way that I think it's been portrayed in media, it's been portrayed as it's coming from a cult-ish place. Like cultish religions are the ones that have ritual and that scary things happen during those. So I'd say that's another reason that people are pretty afraid, is those attachments. Or on the flip side, right, you can be afraid if you are very religious sometimes or have that background, you can be afraid of this word because for the same reason, like because anything that's ritualistic is also scary because it's outside of your norm. It's outside of what we think normally, quote unquote, we should be doing and what is like appropriate to do. Do you have thoughts on that, Jan?
Yeah, I think that brings it to culture, right? Because now we're talking about normal from a specific lens of what you should be doing. Like that's a very specific lens. And when you start to broaden your awareness, you start to see other cultures. And sometimes that can be scary, I think, just because it's unfamiliar. And then if you see something sacred in another culture, that can be even scarier because it's not only familiar or unfamiliar, it is this thing. It is this thing that you don't understand, you don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it. And that's why you have to enter that kind of concept with as much of a blank slate from your own awareness as possible. And sometimes you can use those fears specifically as a great way to go, these are my biases. This is what I believe is a norm that I didn't know. Like this is the water of the fish, right? This is the air that I breathe that I didn't know I was breathing. And I thought everybody was breathing this air and it wasn't true. So that's, I think, another reason why people are afraid of ritual, because it's like, I don't know what they're doing. I know what my rituals are and what is fine for me and I think is good and normal. And I think everybody should do this. I don't have those beliefs anymore that I think everybody should do something that I'm doing. They can do whatever they want. But in that stance, when you haven't come to that reckoning, it's really easy to be like, they're doing something scary and that's ritual. What I'm doing is different. And that's not necessarily true.
Well, lots of times what we're doing that actually is a ritual, we don't call it a ritual
right.
either.
No.
Right, to us, we're like, oh, it's a rhythm, it's a routine, it's a practice. Like we want to use any other word except the R word. That's what it comes down to. And so we always think the things that we do, it's very much just like visiting another country sometimes, because when I lived in Japan and India, right, they have tons of different rituals that they do that's totally native to their culture and to us, like a Japanese tea ceremony. Japanese tea ceremony is very specific. There's very specific things you need to do. And it's very much that this is what we call a ritual. And I think this kind of plays into why we're afraid of this word is, again, because in our mind, the rigidness of what that means and the formality of it. And when someone sees a Japanese tea ceremony, they might feel like, why do they have to bend that way? And why do they have to be on their knees so much? And this seems like really, like some people feel like it's demeaning to women. I don't like this kind of ritual. When Japanese people, they see some of our rituals, some of the things that we do, and even comparing it to a sports game or something like that. Maybe they come to America and see that, like to them, that's scary, right? And to us, going to them, if you go to a Buddhist temple or a Shinto temple, you're going to see some things and maybe it's scary to you, but they would be just, and I've seen it happen like both ways, right? Cross culturally. So A lot of it is just unveiling your biases and getting rid of the idea of formality, the idea of the superstition, the idea of letting this particular word have power over you in that way, and letting yourself instead see it as like, no, this is me making sacred time, being intentional, being mindful, and bringing something back into my life.
I love this. I love that you brought our sports teams into it. This is really funny to me because when I was in like a history class in college, a teacher was like, "Yeah, football is a ritualistic recreation of a less violent version of war." And she's just like, Athens, Sparta, it doesn't matter who's who, they're all just doing this thing. And I just was like, whoa, right? This is really cool to think of it that way. That's good. Okay, so we're already doing random rituals we didn't know were rituals. Is that enough? Or should we be doing other things? And what are some of the things we can do? And why are these things important?
This is a good question to start with. Yeah, that question of, is it enough? I mean, for some people, maybe it's enough. Maybe that's enough for you. But I think having rituals in your life is important because, as we've touched on, it is about bringing your presence to center. So being present in your own life and taking charge of your own life and living in it. Something that we don't realize is that we often think novelty makes things go faster. So we think like, oh, I'm having fun and I'm doing this new thing, so it's going faster. But actually, novelty slows down your life and it makes your life go slower. It makes you live in the present. So an example of this that people are probably familiar with is like, if you go on a road trip, the way there always seems a lot longer than the way back. And it's like, why is that? Well, the way there is new and the way back is not new. And so the not new is what makes it go by so quickly. In the same way, when we bring our attention to the present, we're actually living our lives and we're making it so our lives don't just pass us by. We're not just living in a blur. We're not just letting things come and go and all of a sudden our kids are grown up and all of a sudden we're in a different place and it's already going by so fast. And one of the ways that we can slow it down is to actually be present. And that's what ritual offers you. And that's why it's important to have them. So maybe the rituals that you have are enough for you, but I would say evaluating them first and being cognizant of them and having them be more additive will add more to your life, more time to your life, more of that presence to your life, happiness, more of the intention. And maybe you'll start to see things and patterns in your life that you had not seen before because you're actually stopping and doing these rituals.
I love this. So funny because when you, in the beginning of this whole episode, and you were like, it's just bringing mindfulness into every part of your life. I was like, and presence. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would be so tired at the end of that day if I was present every single minute of every day. But that's like kind of what we're supposed to do. And that would make you tired. So if you have trouble sleeping, try being present a lot more because you will be very tired. It's a workout for our consciousness and it's a workout for our brain, I think, to even our actual neurons to be present in the first place. But then when you tie that into, I'm being present in interacting with this thing, whether it's a candle or whatever, it just creates the substance of time and space right there. And it is so much more powerful in working with your neurons because you're actually interacting with it. You're not trying to skip out on the interaction. I just remembered another thing that I used to do. And I just stopped doing it, but I would have like a taper candle and I would light the candle and I would play with the fire. I would put my hands on either side of the candle and I would move my hands and I was not like fast enough to move the air, but I could see how the fire would respond to the energetics of my hands. And this was like so powerful. This was like one of those things that got rid of my anxiety because I was just playing with the fire in that way and just being very present with the fire and paying attention to it and realizing like I can actually manipulate fire at a very close range, not through air movement, through energetic movement. It was really fun. But like that's a fun thing to do. And you're just spending time doing something that would actually appear from an external person's view as being completely worthless to time, like waste of time. Like you're doing nothing. Like why would you do that? But it is really, really important stuff to our physical body, but also to like our experience of life. Anyways.
Well, I think that's actually a really great point about ritual that you said, Jan, because it shows us that it allows us to get rid of things like anxiety. It allows us to step away from depression because oftentimes we don't realize it, but like anxiety is living in the future. Like we're constantly worried about what will happen, what will happen. And depression sometimes can be we're living in the past. Oh my gosh, this thing happened. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm ruminating on it and I feel so depressed. But something that ritual does by allowing us to be present, exactly like with the candle, is it allows us to step out of that, because when we're present, we can release emotions like that. And it's another one of those exhales, because that's one of the things I was going to say was, for me, part of what it has offered is release, like letting go. And I remember with this pregnancy, that's why I'm like, I'm talking and I'm so out of breath because my due date is tomorrow. It's tomorrow. And we're recording this right now and I can't like breathe. But at the beginning of this pregnancy, I actually had a lot of anger and it was just intense. There was a lot of intensity, a lot of traveling, all the things. And I had a lot of pent up anger about it. And we finally got to New Hampshire and I decided I hadn't been doing any kind of ritual, spiritual practice, like besides trying to be present in the beautiful places that we saw, which can definitely be ritual in itself. But because of this anger, I kind of like wanted everything to pass me by, you know, kind of like Jan was saying, it's so hard to be present every moment. You just get so exhausted. I already was exhausted. So I finally, when we got to New Hampshire, we were parked. This can show you can do it anywhere. We're like parked outside a Walmart and we had slept there the night before in our travel trailer. Moth took the kids in and I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do a practice. I'm going to do a ritual. I haven't done it in a long time. And so I did, and it wasn't huge. I actually just let myself drum, which drumming can be just so powerful, but I let myself drum and I lit a candle and I just let all of that out. I was just in the moment. I allowed myself to be in the moment. And man, it changed everything. Like it was from that moment, right after I did that ritual, all my morning sickness stopped. I was like a happy person again. My husband was like, oh my gosh, you're not grumpy. You have been so like grumpy and snarky for the past while. And I was, because I was just so exhausted. I needed that release. I didn't know that I needed that release. I didn't know I needed to be present. I didn't understand that that's what I was really needing, but that's what I needed. I needed to be in the present. I needed to release and allow myself to, you know, just be and do this ritual. So I think that's another thing that ritual can offer you, is if you are feeling deep feelings, it is a great container to allow yourself to feel and be present, and will get rid of a lot of your problems that you may be having without knowing it.
It's so true. That's so true. Okay, so you talked a little bit about ritual and pregnancy, but what is this? Because you wanted this episode for birth, ready for birth. Why did you want to have this episode ready? Why is this so important to you that it's like almost ritualistic to be posting it around the time of your birth? What is this? Tell me. Tell me.
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, Jan knows this about me, but I I just think I've had ritual has offered so much to me. It has changed my life so much. And I really mean that, like from, let's see, probably from my first year of law school. So just in the past, I don't know, 5 years or whatever. And I remember being there and also being pregnant with Azzy, my youngest right now, like learning, starting to like really deepen my knowledge of all of this stuff and being just so busy, you know, just like so constantly busy, everything taken out of me. And then learning about this concept of ritual, like I said, reading that book and being like, oh, this is what mindfulness is about. This is what it's all about. And adding this to my life, like actually doing that, I felt like ritual helped me to step into my personal power in many ways. And I know that sounds silly because they're tiny practices. They're little things that you do. I mean, I have done very fancy ones before too. You can do the fancy ones, and those are really fun sometimes. But most of the time, they're really small things that you're doing. I could not believe how much these little small things changed my life and brought me to feel like I have all this power. Like I have power to bless myself, bless my home, change the energy of the room, change my own energy, change the way that I think. And I've always been into belief work, right? Like I've been into psychology and all of those kinds of things for a long time and doing self-help work and blah, blah, blah. But this, I think adding, maybe it's because I have so much earth in my birth chart. But like, I think the physicality of it actually was really important to add, because I know a lot of people who like journal, they do all the self-help stuff. Maybe they even do the energy work, but I think there's something about bringing it into the physical realm that really shifts. That helps you to shift. It helps you to see your power, to see yourself properly, and to feel it, kind of like gathering, right? Like there's a difference between doing something online with people, which can be awesome, and being in the same room with someone and having that experience with them. And that's what I would compare this to, is like I had done a lot of over the internet stuff. I had done a lot of cognitive stuff, a lot of spiritual stuff. But once I brought it into the physical realm and had that gathering experience, it was really life-changing for me. So this is a topic I've wanted to talk about for a long time, because I know so many people who could benefit, but also I know how scared people are of this word because of the work that I've been doing with you and with Kaylee, and even doing our retreat last year and all of those kinds of things. I just feel like I want people to feel liberated. And also I was hoping that Jan, you would give me good ideas for rituals before my birth. So
I got 'em, man, I sure. Yeah, no, I think that birth itself requires a lot of ritual, and I think that birth without ritual feels very empty regardless of how it goes. And that may have happened in many ways to a lot of people, that there was an accidental ritual and they felt empowered and it's all fine. But even like I heard someone somewhere was like, yeah, my mom always takes out her daughters to get their nails done right before their due date. Like that's a beautiful ritual. Because like you don't feel pretty at the end of birth, and to look down and be like, oh, I have pretty nails. I feel good. But also there's these really important things to allow the mom to open consciousness, because I've been really into this concept of the pre-birth time frame is the time that you really start to open up to psychedelic meds that are naturally in your system, because you have to kind of go to another place but also be here at the same time when you're in labor. And anything that gives you permission to let go, that practice of letting go, because it's not just a physical squeezing of the body. There is a rhythm there. And when you have a consistent rhythm that is happening in slightly different positions, right? Every rhythm is the same, but it's moving around in a sense. You're going to end up with a whole body experience of otherworldly stuff. You do not need meds to be able to get there when you're pregnant. Like I remember, um, like probably the last week or so before I gave birth to any of my kids, I was starting to feel, well, first of all, tired, right? But there's this just like, I don't care. When you don't care anymore, then that's like such a good thing. And part of I think the ritual piece is inviting the I don't care before birth, is inviting that into your experience and really wrestling with the pieces that you still care about, even though you have the I don't care, all that relax in your body. Right? So it's this wrestle that is the ritual before birth. I don't know what I said anymore. So you're welcome.
no, I love that. I felt like it opened up a lot for me, and it is what I feel like I'm going through in so many ways. Like I just don't care. I don't care. I don't. And you can only care about a certain amount of things. And one of the things I have been caring about, which goes along with this very well, is I have felt like, because I'm so busy planning and trying to get everything ready for this birth and navigating so much, I haven't had time for my usual rituals. I
Yeah.
haven't been making time for that spiritual practice or for as much intentionalness in my life. And I keep thinking that like that's something that I really want and I really need. And it was making me sad to feel disconnected in that way, feeling disconnected spiritually. So maybe that's why we had to do this episode today. And it's funny because I say I don't have time, but obviously I'm not prioritizing it. I'm sure there is time, but everything else. And just like this applies to anyone, not just someone about to give birth, but we all have things that press on our life that feel more important. than this stopping and doing ritual and making yourself be present in the moment. But I do feel like even in those times, you can prioritize it. And if you don't prioritize it, then you feel that disconnectedness. And by prioritizing it and doing it, it will come back to you. Like, because whenever I do it, this happens to me all the time. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And then I finally make time for it. And it's like, wow, that was amazing. It's kind of like exercise. You're like, oh, I don't want to do exercise. I don't want to do the thing, and then you do it and you're like, I feel great. That was great. Why don't I do that every day? Kind of a thing. And my exercise right now has been kind of the only time I guess I would say that has been more of a ritual, but this has really brought me back to wanting to do kind of an intentional spiritual ritual for myself. So hopefully other people get a lot out of that by listening to this, but bringing something into the real world really does solidify it in your brain and helps you to feel it fully and helps you open up the space in between, which is important. We never talk about the space in between, but there's so much space in between and these in between things. And this can help you tap into that and to feel it and to be present and to have a real life, like to actually live your life and taste all the goodness of that.
Yeah, I think that I felt the times that I had the most like intentional rituals built in, I felt like I had the most time and I could see the space in between this ritual and that. I think that's the other thing we didn't mention is like when you have consistent rituals, there's like that downbeat, just like what we've talked about with the wheel of the year and holidays. When you have daily or multiple times a day, certain things that you do, it really puts your mind on those things instead of it just being this expanse of time that doesn't feel like you can connect with it. So that's like so powerful right there. And it's so funny that you were talking about bringing the concept into reality. And that's also what birth is, right? Bringing a concept into reality. So when you are doing ritual, that's what you're doing. You're birthing a little bit of, not a big birth, but a little birth every time. It's good.
It's very Neptune and Aries vibes, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, ritual is the way of the next 12 years or whatever, right? Because
Mm,
Neptune and Aries.
that's true. Well, what is one thing that you want people to know before we sign off about ritual? And I'll think of one too.
I think just what we were talking about just now, knowing it's okay to prioritize this, even if it looks like you're doing nothing, you are doing something. And again, it's that very masculine. We get caught up in the do, 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 do. You need to do the things. You need to be on top of it. You got to get up there. And everything's going to seem more important. It always does. That email, like the email that's coming through, the text that's coming through, whatever this person said, people coming over for dinner, whatever it is. There's always going to be something that's quote unquote more important than spending time being intentional. But you can do this in very small ways. Like Jan's tea thing probably takes you 1 minute. Like you have 1 minute to think about stirring intention into your tea or your coffee or whatever it is that you drink in the morning, right? Or you can take a moment to focus on your food and put intention into your food for just 1 minute. And just remember that even though it doesn't seem like the most important thing, it really is because it brings you back to life and it breathes life into you and it allows you to bring the spiritual into the physical and reset yourself as well.
So good. So good. Um, just this concept of anything that makes you feel immediate panic around just the word of it, take a look at that thing, because if you still can't get past that word that we're talking about here, it has nothing to do with inherent problematic issues and everything to do with how you were taught that word means. And start asking the questions. Would why would people want me to believe bad things about ritual? And what benefit might they have? And that might help you start to unwind a little bit more around that. If you don't need help unwinding the word, then don't worry about it. But really just give yourself that space. And it's true for almost anything we have that immediate recoil to, because when we recoil, it is our own self reacting to that concept that we have created and not necessarily to an actual external environment. So that is kind of the soapbox I want to get on there.
I love it. And if you are looking for little rituals or ideas of things to do, our Wheel of the Year episodes are awesome for that. Our Creating Sacred Spaces episode is awesome for that. And we often talk about things that we do in almost every episode. So just keep listening and you'll learn more about rituals.
That's for sure. I forget about some rituals I have that show up and I go, oh, right, I do that. All right, cool. Well, thanks you guys so much for listening and have a great week. We'll see you next time.